All right, hello and welcome to this month's Q&A show on networking. I'm your host, founder of Magnify Your Marketability, Diana YK Chan, where we help professionals differentiate as top talent to get the job they love, earn more money, and accelerate their career. So tonight's topic is on networking, how to network to get work. This is one of the most popular topics that I get asked to speak about. And I'm delighted tonight to have two guests to share with us their journey of how they successfully leverage networking to successfully get hired. So before we get started, I want to share with you some of my guiding principles about networking. I have 3 guiding principles that I want to share with you here. Number 1 is the ABC, to always be connecting, anytime and anywhere, as you never know what new opportunities may come your way. Number 2 is to always be curious. You want to be naturally curious and genuinely interested in people by asking powerful questions, as that's where you can find the common interest. Number 3 is to give more than you get. The more you give, the more you'll get back. And this is how I really define positive networking, which is really discovering what you can do for others. Okay, so what we're going to do here is I would like to introduce Chike and Matt. They're both in New York. I've known Chike for about a few years now, and Matt I've actually did my undergrad with. I'm going to have them introduce you to us. But share with you their experience first, and then we'll go into more of their journey of their job search. So welcome, Chike and Matt. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having me.
Excellent. So why don't we start off with Chike? Why don't you tell us about your background, and then we'll move it with Matt.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. My name is Chike Gardner. I'm an experienced business consultant with over 15 years of multifunctional experience within the financial services and information technology sector. Currently, I live in Jersey City and work for Cognizant Technology Solutions in the banking and financial services New York City practice, supporting all of the Tier 1 banks throughout North America. Prior to joining Cognizant, I held a position of program manager in the banking and financial practice as well within CGI back in Toronto. Previously to CGI, I worked at Rogers Communications, also in Toronto, where I focused on program management, wireless product introduction, and call center operations. In regards to my background in education, I graduated from Richard Ivey School of Business. I obtained an MBA there. I specialized in project management and completed my PMP. I also have experience with Six Sigma Green Belt training. Did my undergrad at Ryerson University in Information Technology Management. And currently I'm enrolled at NYU doing a digital marketing program with the goal of moving into that area. So that's a little bit of my background.
Great. Thank you, Chike. And Matt.
Thank you.
Yeah, hi everyone. So I am currently working at Rockefeller Group Investment Management Corp. It's a division of Rockefeller. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of it. It's the company that built Rockefeller Center. And there I work on the investment team, and I'm investing in office buildings all across the country. And the company sets up private equity funds to invest in real estate. So I also help with fund strategy, trying to think of new ways to raise funds and what type of markets we would target. And then also helping out with asset management, which is just actually running the portfolio. And as Diana mentioned, I went to Ivy for undergrad with her, and upon graduation went into real estate in Toronto, started out on the brokerage side at Colliers, and then moved over to TD Securities in real estate investment banking. There, I wasn't really doing straight investment banking, though. They had a property brokerage team in-house, so we worked closely with the guys doing M&A and equity offerings. And I would be actually working on the assets, doing financial underwriting and marketing those for sale for public and private companies. Then moved to New York City about 5 years ago to do my master's in real estate finance at New York University. And upon graduation, started working in real estate in the city, and about 4 months ago joined Rockefeller.
Great, excellent. Thank you. I want to encourage all of you who are live with us, feel free to type your questions in the chat room, and I will ask Chike and Matt here. I'm going to start with some of the questions that I have. So why don't we start off with what were some of the challenges that you faced in your job search, and maybe we can give some background of why you even decided to start your job search or how that all happened.
Right. Well, for me, one of the big challenges was just, coming from Canada and moving to New York City. And, one of the best things I did was going to school here. I realized that going to Ivy, I was privileged to have such a huge network of people that worked in real estate in Toronto. Coming down here, there are some Ivy grads that are doing that, so I still have that network here. But I knew I wanted to build a local network, and I figured the best way to do it was to do a real estate program in New York City. And that helped me get over that hurdle of not knowing a lot of people, but it took time. And then also just people not really understanding my experience in Canada. You think of, for all of you that are in Canada, you think of TD Securities, and it's a huge investment bank. A lot of people are familiar with it. In New York City, there's TD Bank US, and it's just bank branches. And investment banking is really irrelevant here. So people didn't understand what TD Securities was. So I had to go into, more of an in-depth story and explanation of what that firm is and what it was about. And I think that made a huge difference as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So part of it's also really selling, I guess, your experience, but also selling the company to help qualify yourself when you move to the U.S. here.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, another big thing in the U.S. is just it's very, it's all about pedigree. I mean, maybe that's more of a New York City thing, but people really follow, like, what school did you go to, and what companies did you work for, because they want to make sure you check all the boxes, and trying to give it, that extra explanation of, like, all the places that I worked at and let them know how it compared, helped me get around that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And Chike, I know that you and I we worked together a couple of years ago, and you were very proactive with your job search. Like, how did you, I guess, anticipate that, and what were some of the challenges you faced as you had to prepare to your move to the U.S.?
Well, some of the challenges that I faced was specifically with not meeting people, because being sociable, I mean, that wasn't a problem. It was actually not being prepared enough when I would meet somebody of what I call influence. So that individual who he or she would be able to make a decision on whether or not they want to hire you, and being in front of them, and not only not knowing specifically what you wanted to do, it sort of was a little bit of an insult to them, because I was pretty much wasting their time, and they wouldn't tell me, but I can be able to pick it up. So on challenge, I realized strategic with what I wanted to do. I didn't specifically know the role, the group, and primarily the sector with what I wanted to do. So I had to quickly refocus and narrow that search down, because when I met those individuals, I didn't want to waste any time and come across as wishy-washy.
Okay. So let's talk a bit more about these challenges here, because one of the common things I always hear about from people is, well, they'll say if they're looking to change industries or to change careers or to move elsewhere, one of the things they always tell me is that, well, I don't have a big enough network, or I don't have people in that space, or where do I start? And can we maybe talk a little bit about, like, how, first of all, like, how did you actually go about even develop that network, and how did you go about even connecting with them?
Right. Well, for me, I feel like there are networks all around me. And, the first network that I really discovered the power of networking was, my undergrad program. And I think the fact that, Diana, you and I are in touch to this day is a testament to how strong that network is. And then when I got my first job at Colliers, all of a sudden I had access to the Colliers network. And that Ivy network actually got me my job at Colliers. And then when I was at Colliers, somebody left to go to TD Securities, and then I leveraged that network to follow them to TD Securities. And the same thing with going to NYU. That ended up opening doors to my first job in New York. And then when I left my first job in New York to go to Rockefeller, I leveraged the network that I built at that firm. So I feel like, it's not only just the firm. If you're trying to change industries, or for me, like when I went from brokerage to investments, there's always other ways to meet those people, joining organizations. I'm a member of a lot of different real estate organizations in New York. I get involved in panels, and then you're starting to build other networks that are in that realm that you want to find a career in. So I think it's just being proactive and getting out there and figuring out what networks you have and what networks you want to have, and then slowly build those.
Yeah, I always talk about how you don't want to start networking when you're looking for a job. Like networking should be something that you should always be doing throughout your life and career, or even in school as well, so that when it comes out to reaching out to them for help during a job search, it makes it a lot easier. What about you, Chike?
I found that in terms of leveraging your network, you don't really necessarily have to know that many people. You just need to really focus on what your strategy is and start with the people that are in your circle. And then just be authentic and let them know exactly what it is that you're looking to do, and make sure that, within your personal and your professional life, you reflect that same person. And then put a plan together, and, as Matt alluded to in regards to going into the different networks, if, you're at a school like I'm at NYU as well, I leverage that. I leverage other professional organizations that I'm a part of. The Ivy network is phenomenal. And you just sort of be real and let people know what it is that you want. And you'll be surprised what you can get once you put your plan together. So I think once you put together that strategy, then the network is right there. I mean, if you actually think about it, it may seem corny, but if you pretend that you have a name tag with your name on it that says, "Hi, my name is Chike," and you walk around, what's going to happen is people are going to come up to you and see that name tag, and some are going to look at you like you're weird, and then some are going to reach out and say hi, and you never know who that person is. So you have to have that kind of attitude at all times, and I think once you wear that hat, things just start to open up for you after a period of time. And it's just not how you start the race, but it's how you finish. So having that mindset and then leveraging all of your networks, whether it be through education, through work, through professional organizations, or strategically seeking individuals that have influence and sort of building a relationship with them, as opposed to just letting them know that I want a job, and doors will open up at some point for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I really resonate with you about the mindset. A lot of it is really your mindset, because it's the way of your being that would impact the impression that people will have about you and whether they're going to remember you for opportunities. Let's get more into the specifics here, because both of you, because I know you, I know both of you did a lot of networking during your job search, and you each had your own strategy. And why don't we share with the audience here of like what specific steps did you take during that journey, and what were some things you learned along the way?
Yeah, I think for me, it's just going back to being proactive, and really getting out there and pushing yourself to get out and meet with as many people as possible. So for me, I would actually, 2 weeks out, I would always start trying to fill my week up, grabbing coffee with somebody here, lunch with somebody there. And then when I get together with the people in my network, I would update them on, the transition I was interested in making or where my goals were, and then I would see if they maybe had somebody they could introduce me to. And then it just kept snowballing, and I started meeting with more and more people, and they were introducing me to more and more people, and it was just staying on top of it and continuously following up with people. And I mean, I've done this, ever since I finished undergrad. So the people that you meet, you end up, a lot of the times you'll become friends with them, and you're, I'm still in touch with people years later. And that's the strongest type of network, obviously. One where Diana was alluding to earlier, where she said that you want to be getting in front of people when you don't need anything. And obviously, when you need a job or you want a new job and you're you're really pushing to make a transition sooner than later, you're going to be trying to network with people that you don't know that well. But it's surprising how helpful people will be when you're not necessarily looking for something from them more than just maybe an introduction to somebody else.
So Matt, what I'm hearing from you is that you you've made network as more what I call like almost as part of it in terms of socializing, always staying in touch with people, making the effort um, of, checking in with people how they're doing, so that when it came to actually your job search, it didn't feel as awkward, I guess. It made it easier because what I heard a few things is that you were always planting the seeds as well in terms of where you're at in your career, but also letting people know what you're looking for so that they can keep you in mind for future opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Just a follow-up question on that, like how did you, because we talk about the whole give versus get as well, like how do you also, I guess, add value to your network so that when it came to actually doing your job search that, that they were also willing to reciprocate and to help you?
Yeah, well, I mean, given that for me, this has just kind of been a part of my career, it's that, I'm always trying to meet with people because, I work in real estate. I need to be sitting down with people in real estate to learn what they're working on, to hear more about what they're doing, and to try and do business with them. So there's always an element of, a lot of these people would be calling me up, trying to get information on deals I was working on, or maybe they had a friend or somebody else that was interested in the business. And then in other instances, I mentioned earlier that I'm involved in a lot of different real estate organizations, and I would volunteer my time to do mentorship programs or to be a panelist. One of the things that I did was I would go to different universities in New York and go on real estate panels for all the real estate clubs or students in actual real estate programs. So when the senior people on the committees in those organizations saw that I was giving back and doing that, they wanted to help me more.
Okay, that's great to hear. So volunteering to give talks and share your expertise as well. That's great. So Chike, share your story, because one of the things that I really remember about you is that you wanted to move to the U.S. and you made it happen. You flew down there, went to tons of career fairs, tons of interviews, and then had like offers at the end. And walk us through in terms of, first, how did you get motivated to do that, and second, how did you make all that happen?
Right. Well, for me, my motivation comes from, as Matt was alluding to, in terms of like volunteering. So I figured out very quickly that the more you volunteer, the more that it sort of transforms you into becoming more and more authentic. So when it is that you want something, you're not going to come across as, very needy, or you just wanting that job or whatever it is at that specific time. So once you reposition your thoughts and you just focus on other people. So for example, here in New York, I volunteer at Columbia University, and we have a program at helping schools throughout the greater New York area. So like the different boroughs like Queens, Brooklyn, etc., and get kids who are unfortunately getting lost in the system and kind of go through a program and help them with financial skills, business acumen, etc., just SATs, just helping them be college ready. So it's like a 6-month program, and we put them through that. And in the end, I mean, you're helping that kid succeed. So something like that in terms of being authentic and volunteering. When it comes to now me wanting something specifically, like I remember it was in 2012 when I graduated from Ivy, and I realized that I wanted to move to the U.S. and I could live in the U.S. because my dad's in the States. What I did is I went to specific career fairs and targeted specific companies and sort of had a strategy together and realized that I knew who I wanted to speak to, and I kind of moved from instead of just casting like if you think of a fisherman just casting a net to try to get fish, I kind of repurposed my tactics and only went after like specific industries, or let's say a specific fish per se, to ensure that I don't waste any time or energy. And I was successful. I mean, there were over, I think at this career fair, 220 different Fortune 500 companies, and I had an opportunity to interview with 15 of them, and I flew back and forth from Toronto to the U.S. I think maybe 19 flights in about 8 weeks, and at the end of it, decided that this offer here was the best and then I accepted that. But a testament to that is knowing exactly what it is that I want prior to getting there, because I realized that for me, without knowing specifically what role, what group, what industry, I may not have that opportunity with that influencer once again. So putting together that plan and or that strategy, and then putting together a plan and executing on it, and then getting advice from professionals such as yourself. And I remember we talked about in terms of the authentic part, and that was down packed that I had. But something as simple as smiling changed things, and it was a testament, because for me, even though I was authentic, by smiling more, it meant that I was a little bit more inviting, and people sort of were drawn to me, and as a result, I was able to be successful with various opportunities.
Mm-hmm. That's great to hear that, and that's something I'm hearing as well too, and I want to really emphasize this, because the career fairs are tons of happening in September. Whether you're in Toronto or in the U.S., there are tons of career fairs. Fall time is one of the busiest recruiting seasons, so I really encourage people to take advantage of that. But one thing that Chika really mentioned is be specific and targeted. Now, there are hundreds of companies there. Which are your top companies? You've got to do the preparation and research to find out who's going to be there, so that you can make the most of their time and talk to the right people, and have those meaningful conversations and follow up as well within 48 hours to make that great impression. Chika, can you tell me what are some specific people you talked to? Was it like the hiring managers or recruiters? How did you figure out who's like the right person to talk to?
Okay, so what I've learned is, like, through going to different career fairs, as opposed to just rushing in and sort of just speaking to any and anyone. I found early in, I would go talk to people, and I can just look at the vibe that I'm talking to somebody who's pretty much junior. So for example, if I have 15 years experience and that person is working at a firm that I want to work at, and that person is straight out of MBA school, I can't really relate to that individual, because there's nothing that person could do for me at that point. And nothing against that individual, it's just that I would need to speak to somebody more senior. So what I found is a tactic is you just sit back and you just observe the floor, and then you can actually see who is in charge if you sit down and you just observe the different dynamics of people. And then what you do is you just maybe ask a question to see who that senior person may be on the floor at the time, and then you go up to that individual, and you don't give this 30-second elevator pitch, but you sort of just let the person know this is who you are, this is what you want, and is there a better time that we can sit down and talk, and just be specific. All I need is 10 minutes, but make sure that within the 10 minutes you're very impactful and you know exactly what you want and how you'll provide value. And at the end of the day, it's one word: it's results. And if you can let that individual know that you're going to provide that added value and results, they're going to want to talk to you. But if you just rush in there and start spitting off that I have this MBA and that degree, like, at the end of the day, nobody really cares about what degrees or experience you have. It's what you can do for me, and also, just your personality. That's what sells.
Mm-hmm. That's great to hear, and this is what I always emphasize, is that it's not just going there to make your elevator pitch, but really having that connection, building that rapport where there's a trust, that people really feel you, they can really see that you're authentic and genuine, and seeing that you're curious, that you actually really are interested in the company and want to add value as well, and that's what's really going to make a lasting impression. So let's move in. There's some good questions from the audience here, so I'm going to start asking some questions, and feel free, any of you, could just jump in as well to answer. So the first question from Omar: how much of a challenge was it from a work visa standpoint of you to begin working in the U.S.?
For me, there were some firms that just wouldn't hire anybody who wasn't an American citizen or a permanent resident. But for the most part, you have firms that are either really familiar with the process and they do it all the time, or there are firms that aren't that familiar and maybe they've never done it. So my strategy was to learn as much as possible about the visa, and then if it came up, then I would just make it sound like it was really simple by educating them and just like quickly. But that comes down to like what your education is and like what visas you qualify for, and you just got to make sure that you have that knowledge in your back pocket.
Okay. So you want to do your research first as well. I mean, it is doable. I wanted to just, I've seen people move, moving to the U.S. I mean, it is more challenging from a recruiter standpoint. If they can't find someone in their own country, then they'll start looking elsewhere. But I think if you do your research and you can help them understand the value that you bring, it is certainly doable there. So Ryan has a question on how to start networking when searching for the first job upon graduation. It's a good question.
Well, I mean, I would start reaching out to alumni.
Yeah.
Already, just about a week and a half ago, a girl from Ivy happened to be in New York, and she had reached out to alumni about a month in advance. So she had told me she was coming down, and I set aside time to meet her for coffee, and she was just making the rounds, sitting down with as many people as she could while she was here. And I think beyond that, you really just got to think of what are some of the firms that interest you, and research the websites, look for executives, and try and get their email and reach out to them directly. Try and find them on LinkedIn, and make sure when you go to add them that you have an introduction that you've tailored specifically to them, and let them know that you're really interested in the industry, in their firm, and you'd love to have an opportunity to speak with them or somebody else on the team.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to chime in on this one because I do a lot of speaking for universities, and I do a lot of mentoring. A few things. Number one is volunteering. If you're a student, volunteer any type of events where you bring in speakers. It's a great way to get to know these speakers who work in corporate and to stay in touch with them, because you never know how they may be able to introduce you to someone else. Number two is really leverage alumni network. But I'll share with you some specific examples and stories, what people have done that actually work. I'm an alumni mentor for our school as well. So every year I have a few people who reach out to me. So this summer, actually back in a spring time frame, a first year student from Ivy, HBA1, reached out to me to be her mentor. We talked. She was interested in a career in HR. She lived in Barrie and was actually thinking of just getting a summer job there. And I said, you need to get a job in Toronto if you're looking to move to Toronto down the road so that you can build your network. And it turned out that because of her interest in HR, but also leadership, I suggested her to maybe potentially considering a leadership new grad program. Turned out the week after, one of the companies that I'm connected to was hiring at the school for the new grad program, and I ended up referring her, and then eventually she got hired. I had another intern last year that worked for me who was also an Ivy student. Because she worked for me, I was able to give her a reference, and I referred her to another company as well, and she got hired. So those are some examples just to give you an idea of how reaching out to people can make a difference. Another one I remember a few years ago, I had a student that I spoke to at, what's the school? Ryerson University. The student was very interested in a recruiting career, and my background is in recruiting, where I've worked at the corporate side and the agency side, and he really wanted to understand the difference working in agency versus in corporate. And so I gave him the download of that, but I also introduced him to people who've actually worked on both sides so that he could actually get more information. And from there, this recruiter who I actually met just on LinkedIn, he met with him for coffee and really liked him, made a great impression. He then introduced him to his former boss at one of the top recruiting agencies. And so this person also met with him for coffee and really liked him. They've never ever had an intern before to work for this agency, but because he liked him so much that they created the first ever internship for this person. And then 3 months later, they actually offered him a full-time offer. The point here is that what this person did was he actually followed up to stay in touch with me back in the fall, and then it was like 8 months later when it came to a summer job that he stayed in touch and followed up with me that led him to these multiple opportunities. And so this is where I think the benefit is either by volunteering or attending events like this can really help you expand your network. All right, so let's move on to the next question. Olga has a question on how do you maintain networking? I guess includes a lot of people. Do you meet with them or do you just have them on LinkedIn? You want to chime in here?
Sure.
Yeah, I was gonna say I make a point usually to make sure that I'm having lunch, coffee with a certain number of people every week, and just making sure that I'm staying in touch with all my peers and everyone in my network. And then also, I fly back to Toronto pretty regularly to visit family, and if I can get there, for a Friday, then I make sure that in advance of my trip I set up meetings with people and lunch, whatever, just trying to make sure I catch up with them.
Chike?
For me, I try to make an effort. I was saying before, just being authentic. So because if you focus on that, regardless if I talk to an individual today, if I talk to somebody 12 months from now, because I'm going to be authentic, time doesn't really matter. So when I connect with them, they know that I'm connecting with them just to really see how they're doing. And if it's something that I need, it's not going to come across as fake, because I would have done like your summer student and strategically thought about landing that summer job maybe a couple months in advance, and sort of kept in touch. And then if it is that I want to make sure that I have some key people in my network that I want to keep, always fresh, then I would do like what Matt was alluding to, and sort of just connect with them, as often as I can, have lunch, have dinner, make sure that, like LinkedIn is a perfect opportunity. If you clean up your network and you just don't have people, you should know who's in your network. You shouldn't just allow any random person to get into your network just to maybe get to, let's say, 500 connections. Focus on who these people are and what it is that how they relate to you, because that's the same person that if you recommend someone, it's your name. And once again, you being authentic comes into a major play. So I think whether or not you use LinkedIn, I think there's a feature that it automatically tells you whose birthday it is. I mean, use that. It's a simple reminder. And then just don't say, happy birthday, Matt. I mean, put in a note and see how he's doing. Or send him a private email or something of that nature. But once again, just be real. Don't just network for the sake of networking, because people can look and see through if you're not genuine. And the second that they realize that you're not genuine, then it's a lost cause.
Yeah, yeah. I'm going to add in a few things as well. In terms of LinkedIn, I think it's a really great tool to, one, leverage it for your job search, but also a great way to use it to manage your network as well. So you mentioned like there's these tools there. They also have a feature where you can schedule a certain time to actually remind you to follow up with certain people. So you can actually put in the time to send you an email reminder to follow up with certain people there. Something that I've done when I'm hearing also is I've actually scheduled, and on Fridays, what I call it's my Pay It Forward Fridays, where I actually take the time to check in with people, I make connections, I make phone calls, but really schedule that in. So it's a way to also stay in touch with people. I'm a big connector, so if I know people who may help someone who have common interests or common background, I'll make introductions. That's a great way to stay in touch with people as well. Sharing articles, sharing about upcoming events. It's a great way for people to remember you. Like for example, like I know like Chike, like I mean you've moved to the U.S. for over a year now, but I know every couple months you'll ping me or you'll introduce me to someone in your network who may be interested in career coaching, and that's a great way just to stay in touch with people that way. So I'm just looking at time. I know, Matt, you probably need to go in 5 minutes, so I'm just going to ask you a few more questions before I let you go here. How did you stay persistent and motivated through your job search? Especially when times are tough or when there were a lot of rejections. Like, how did you manage your mindset to stay proactive?
I mean, one of the things was just simply like I knew as time passed, I was just getting closer and closer. And when I got more proactive, I started meeting more and more interesting people, better firms, and I started hearing about more opportunities. So even when something didn't work out, I was just like, wow, well, now I've got this great contact. And I started seeing how all these relationships were kind of building on them. I mean, I actually leveraged my job search in some regards, it's kind of a tangent, but I would go and meet a lot of pension funds in Canada, and I figured, you know what, if nothing comes out of this, now I've got all these relationships with pension funds that I'll be able to use when I finally find the job that I have. And as I started expanding my network through my search, I felt like I started having more and more to offer to potential employers. So I think that helped motivate me a lot, just like growing the network, having the opportunity to meet more people, and just have more to bring to the table.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. Another question I have here is, in your opinion, like, what is it that convinced your current employer to hire you? Like, what was that turning point?
Well, this one was kind of unique. It came back to talking about wherever you work, you gotta make that your network. You're gonna build close allegiances. You're gonna have camaraderie with people that you work with, and there I was leaving the firm, and I got my boss to introduce me to the Rockefeller Group, and he was good friends with the CEO. And I got in front of them, and I went in, and I was very polished and prepared, thanks to you and your help. and when I went in there, I just kind of made my selling point, my elevator speech, what my strengths were, and I think I just presented really well, and then had that introduction from somebody that they trusted, and I think that the two of those combined, made them finally come around and bring me on board. So I think it's just important to really like harvest your network, because when somebody recommends you, that goes a long way. And then if you make sure that you prepare and you go in and you speak well and you show your enthusiasm, then and you really hit the bullet points on like what your accomplishments are, what it is you're trying to do, and why you want to do it there, then I mean you've just done everything that is possible in trying to nail an interview and secure an offer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. I really want to hit this home, like the polishedness, the preparation, and also having a strong endorsement goes a long way. Like I always say that when you get a referral, your studies have shown you're 4 to 5 times more likely to get hired, and it's like you get into the express lane in terms of getting an interview. I recently had a success story from another client here. She was an AVP from a top bank, and she actually wanted to change industries. Very beginning of her job search, she tapped into her network. She met someone in the retail industry, and they had an open role, one of the top retailers, an open role in operations in e-commerce. And so she doesn't have experience at all. Like she comes from a marketing background, financial service. Went for the first interview. Pretty much within a week, she got the offer. That's like unheard of. Like just the resume was just thrown in because it was a VP who referred. And I found out that the reason why she got hired, not because of her experience, but because of who she is, her personality, and her track record of success. Plus the endorsement from this VP who's really well known in the industry. So when I think about that, she changed industries, changed careers, pretty much skipped the express lane, only had 1 round an interview and got an offer. Is that possible? Definitely. But a lot of it is also back to you in terms of how prepared you are and really understanding the value that you have to offer to the employer. So excellent. Anything else? Because Matt, I know you need to go. Is there any final advice that you have for anyone from a job seeker standpoint of leveraging their network? What maybe 2 to 3 pieces of advice that you have?
Yeah, I would say being proactive, number one. The network isn't going to come to you, and you really got to get out there. And number 2, it's being persistent. Follow up with people. I can't tell you how many times I've reached out to people to set up a meeting or set up a lunch, and they go radio silent, sometimes for months. But then you follow up, and they're like really apologetic usually, and then we meet right away. And the other thing is that don't write something off because it's not a great opportunity, or you think the person isn't going to be like anybody that can help you. When somebody makes an introduction or suggests you reach out to someone, you should do it, because I can tell you that one of the opportunities that I got was somebody said, "Hey Matt, there's an analyst opportunity. It was like a really junior role with this firm," and I just figured, you know what, I'm going to go and meet this guy anyways. Went, met with the guy, we connected, became friends, and then stayed in touch with the guy. And a couple of months later, it was probably about 6 months after that initial meeting, this guy said that he was quitting his job, and he thought that I would be a great candidate, and I ended up getting the job and filling his role. Mm-hmm. And you know, had I been like, I'm too good to be an analyst, or I'm way too experienced, then I would have never got, you know, the job that was suitable. So I think it's just go and meet people. And there are times when I've met people and they've just said, you know what, I know you're probably more experienced than the role we're looking to fill, but we just wanted to meet you. And then these people have gone on to introduce me to other opportunities. So I think it's just be open-minded and just go in there before you cast judgment.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Thank you for that advice. Thank you so much, Matt. I look forward to reconnecting with you again. All the best with everything, and enjoy your summer.
Great. Thanks very much for having me on, and good luck to everyone.
Thank you. Take care. All right. So, Chike, we're going to continue our conversation here. What advice do you have for job seekers?
In terms of, from my experience, I think that rejection and setbacks are just, you got to look at it as part of the cycle, and more or less keep a positive mindset, and just understand that if you get rejected, it doesn't matter. You just have to refocus your strategy and try again, and take that, you know, that, or like, you might think it's negative, but it's not negative, because you gotta look at it from the perspective that every interaction that you have, regardless if it's positive or negative, is an experience. And if you think of it as being an experience, then you're going to learn from it. And then a simple adjustment might in fact help you get over that hump in terms of if that, you know, that initial roadblock or setback. So it's all about your mindset. So in reality, if things worked out as easy as your friend with the AVP, she may not. That's a wonderful story, and I think it does happen, and I think that does provide hope for all of us. But the reality is, it's the opposite for most people, and you know, you're going to get the doors closed in front of you pretty much 90% of the time. And when it does happen, you know, you can't be sad and mad. You have to sort of just refocus your strategy and just keep going. Because as Matt said, you know, he had the opportunity to meet somebody, but it was for a junior role. Had he not gone, he would have missed out on that opportunity of fulfilling the guy's role in 6 months. So you never know, and things are not set in stone. So from that perspective, you just always have to have the right mindset.
Yeah, I agree. I appreciate being you being authentic about this, and you're absolutely right. Majority would probably receive more no's than the yes, and so rejection is part of it. And I mean, it's similar to, you know, in people in sales, you have to get how many no's before you get your final yes. So getting a rejection does not mean there's something wrong with you. It's just it's not the right fit and not now. And so part of it is be able to handle that rejection and then move on. And I think that's really important, because I know how frustrating it could be during a job search when you really want a job and it doesn't work out. You just got to pick yourself back up there. Chike, there's a question here from Jeanette. Do you have any advice on how to network if you're shy? What does putting yourself out there look like specifically? Well,
Jeanette, you got to look at it from this perspective. You only know what you know, and you know what you don't know. So what I mean by that is, if it is that you're shy, that's the reality. So then, you know, you can stay shy, or you can be proactive and do something about it. And you know, you don't have to change yourself. You just have to make an adjustment. So you have somebody like, I look at it from this perspective. Having a career coach could help you not only to get the job, but to specifically help you on something like being shy. So I don't know if you follow any sports, but I'll give you an analogy. So if you remember Michael Jordan, he was an amazing basketball player, um, and everybody thought that he was just gifted. And yes, he is gifted, but at the same time, he put in a lot of work. So while you and I were sleeping, he was shooting maybe 100 jump shots, like, or 100 foul shots, like, continuously for the entire day. So that when it came down to a game-winning opportunity, he didn't lose. He always came out on top. And if he did lose, he learned from it and then practiced even harder. So, get yourself, in that case, focus on, let's say, Diana. Diana is a perfect opportunity as a career coach to work on those. And I wouldn't say it's negative. I would just say that it's just something that you need to sort of make an adjustment because you want that job. And if it is that you're in the front line as opposed to in the back line, like the back end type of jobs, you're going to need to be a little bit more interactive with people, confident, and you might have to do that adjustment, and it might be hard on your own. But like Michael Jordan did, he hired a coach to help him shoot. Diane is that coach. And once you start getting going with a few strategies and sort of tactics to address being shy, it's just a matter of time. And you can practice at home, practice with your family, practice with your friends. It's very simple concept to change. So I wouldn't be discouraged if you're shy. I would just see that as an opportunity to not change, but sort of continue being authentic, but work on that inner person.
Yeah, and I think thank you for that, TK. It's that it's also a mindset that some people think that, well, shy people cannot network effectively, and so that's just more I think a mindset or perception that people have, and maybe some few things I could offer is that if you feel you're shy, is have focus more on having those one-on-one conversations versus being in group networking. One of the great, I think, advantages of being a shy or introvert person is you're a great listener. So focus on asking questions and really pay attention to listen to the needs of the person and follow up afterwards. That's another great way to make yourself stand out there.
Right.
Yeah. Another question here is from Marisol. What advice would you give for introverts who may be socially anxious and fearful of people when it comes to networking and putting yourself out there? I don't think I would ever be able to join a panel. Exposing myself had been my biggest challenge.
So I would say that I would remove the word never. I think that you could probably do that, and you just need a little bit of coaching. In respect to, you realize you don't really have to do too much. You just have to be yourself. So if you go into a room, like you can practice going into an event or something with people who don't know you, and everybody is just as nervous as you because nobody likes to hear themselves speak. So at the end of the day, if you find something that you're really passionate about, and it's not, boring, like I went to this school, this is my GPA, this is my experience, those things are just expected. So in reality, nobody cares about that. But if it is that, you want to do something about homelessness, so you volunteer at a homeless shelter, once a month, and you help people, I mean, that's something that's pretty fantastic. And you're actually doing something that most people are not going to do. And people will want to listen to that. So everybody has something that they do that's interesting. And that's what it is that you got to focus on and talk to people about. And as you start to talk to them, it may resonate with that individual because you never know what interest that individual may have. And then before you know it, you're becoming more of an extrovert. And then you can kind of go into, well, it just so happens that I'm in the job market, and I went to this school, I've done this program, and that happens to be your specialty in terms of your area, and then it kind of goes from there. So you can use every opportunity to explore things that you want to get into. Don't think that just because you're an introvert that life's over. It doesn't really work that way. You just have to maybe put in a little bit more effort, a little bit more hard work, and not worry about rejection or somebody just annoyed, or it doesn't matter. That person's lost. That's how you have to look at it, and just keep plugging away.
Yeah. Yeah, appreciate that. This is great, a great question. I'm actually going to share my own personal story as well, and hope that will inspire some people. I moved to Canada all by myself when I was 16 from Hong Kong, and I had to overcome the language barrier, my shyness, and the culture shock here. And I was always the one standing behind all my friends because I was worried what people will think about me or what they'll say, or I felt that my English was not perfect, or I had this accent. And honestly, I just had to face my fear. That's something I could say is really just face it. And what I did was I had multiple part-time jobs in retail settings where I had to really face people. I decided to do a lot of public speaking work. I took courses on it to improve my public speaking. And the more I did it, the more confident that I got. And the less I worried about whether what I was saying was correct or not, and being more just open to asking people, but like, hey, how do you pronounce this word? I was more comfortable with myself as well. And so I think part of it is you got to face that when you think that you can't be a part of a panel, but as soon as you've done your first one, you'll be like, hey, that was not too hard. I can do more of that. So part of it is facing it and practice. Practice certainly helps. And I think one thing that you and I, Chike, that we're really aligned on, and we talk a lot about, is really being yourself and being authentic and being genuine. People can really feel that energy when they feel that they can tell if you're nervous, but they can feel that you're just genuinely, that you just want to be there and get to know that person there. Oh. Another question from Tina here. Have you come across any noticeable differences in business protocol or etiquette between Canada and the US when seeking a job?
I would say that the business protocol is similar. It's the same, but the environment is night and day. The U.S. corporate environment, I would say, in telecommunications, financial services, consulting, tends to be. It seems like a lot of the corporations they're based on like a military type of backdrop. That being said, everything seems to be. They don't really care who you are or what you can do. It's the result. If it is that you say you can get something done, you better get it done. Over here, they don't really take kindly to excuses. So my knowledge is if you're given a hill and you have to climb up the hill, I found that living in Toronto, I can actually start climbing up the hill and then make an excuse and say, oh, I didn't get my shoes from Diana, so as a result, I was not able to continue. In the U.S., they don't care. It's more or less, this is the hill, get it done. I don't care how you get it done, that's not my problem. And that's the mindset. And sometimes it's a little bit misconstrued in the sense that there seems to be a little bit more blunt, but I call it there's no happy talk. They just focus on the end result and pretty much it's business. Because at the end of the day, it's revenue and profits, and then fun comes after. So I would say that's a significant difference. The business acumen is the same. If not, it's probably a little bit more relaxed here, as funny as it may sound, because the people are a lot more confident. So, you don't find people just talking for talking's sake. They probably talk less, but have more to actually offer when it is that they speak. And that's just here in this part of the region. The rest of the different parts of the states might be a little different.
Right. Okay, that's interesting. Kathy has a question on how long did it take you to find your new role?
Well, Kathy, for me, it sort of, I think it was 3 months that I was able to find my new role. But that was some sort of searching and trying to figure out what exactly I wanted to do. And it wasn't specifically what I wanted to do. I really wanted to get out of consulting. But having the opportunity to sort of work with New York banks or top US Tier 1 banks was something that I thought I couldn't give up. So I kind of sacrificed what I really wanted, and just more or less took the opportunity.
Yeah. I know that here in Canada, on average, it takes about 6 months for someone to find a job. That's the average. So if you can find something within that, it's pretty good, and it's a very competitive market in general. And I think this is where it is really critical for those any job seekers out there. It's not just about finding a job, but you also be able to really prove to an employer why you are the best candidate to hire, why you over someone else. And this goes back to what makes you as a unique candidate. So it's not just about selling all the experience you have, but it's a combination of who you are, your knowledge, your skills, your expertise, and your ability to really perform, like deliver results and be identified as a high potential talent where they want to groom you and develop you as a future leader. So another question here is from Emily. To your point about following up, when the other person does not respond, how often would you follow up, and how to go about expressing your interest without sounding desperate?
Well, you just got to reverse it. You got to look at it that if you were the person that they were trying to get some time with and you're just busy and you just didn't have an opportunity, how often would you want somebody reaching out to you? That being said, they don't need the job, you do. So even if you get, rejected, even if it is that rejection comes in the form of, let's say, somebody's ignoring you or just not answering you back, just be polite and, just be professional and periodically, check back in and not check in, I'm just checking up to see when I can get, we can have that coffee or lunch or whatever it may be. Just ask them how they're doing. How was your weekend? And kind of change your strategy to make it once again more authentic. And then I think once it is that you're consistent but not being a pest, what will happen is at some point they will let you know when it is that they have some time, because at the end of the day, their time and your time, it's not in sync, because you don't need, they may not need the job, you need the job, so that you need it like yesterday. You sent an email tonight, you expect them to respond to you tonight. And in reality, it doesn't work that way. Like, for example, summertime right now, you're looking for an opportunity. You might get a bite and somebody talks to you. Just realize that that interviewing process may take 8 weeks, because people are on summer vacation, and as soon as the new budget comes out for September, then you're going to be flooded and inundated with people wanting to talk to you. So just understand that, from September to November is a time where it is that you've got to have your A game and ready to get that job, and then also in the springtime. In between that, I'm not saying you can't, but it's a little bit of a lull in terms of trying to get that opportunity.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. If anyone's looking for a job right now, this is a good time to start preparing for yourself, because come September, it's going to be really busy recruiting season. I would say in general, rule of thumb is like, 10 days. So, give it 10 days before you follow up. And most of the time, I'll tell you, it's really not about you, like that people don't respond. Like, I know for me, I'm a career coach and recruiter. I get requests every day from people either looking for jobs, looking to have coffee meetings with me, or asking to pick my brain. And the reality, sometimes I just can't respond to every single request. And it's not because I don't want to meet with them, it's just that in terms of the amount of requests that I have. So I think part of it is also giving people a way to say no as well. If they can't meet with you for coffee, could it be like a phone chat or a video meeting to make it easier for them as well? And sometimes, if you're talking to a recruiter, if they don't have something now, check in like every couple months or so, or every quarter, to let them know that that you're still interested, or for them to keep you in mind. And that usually, sometimes that they'll just, they'll remember you, and you can check every few months or so. And that's exactly what happened when I was recruiting for Google. I recruited for some very senior roles for account executives, and had nothing really below that job in terms of account managers. But those who kept in touch with me every quarter, when it came to Christmas time, I had 20 plus openings. Those who stayed in touch with me were the people that I followed up first, because I remembered them. So you just have to be persistent. So I guess to wrap things up, so I'm just looking here if there are any other questions. Okay, one last question before I wrap up here. What are some topics that can be useful to start a conversation with a potential recruiter? Oh, I guess I could take this one. This one's kind of hard. I think the part of it is really, I think in terms of industry trends or things that you know about what's happening in the industry. But I think another is it's really finding out more about asking them as well, getting their opinions on what's happening in the industry itself, or even recruiting as well, whether it's a good season or not. I think a big part of it is really be genuine, and finding out, like, just how, getting their feedback as well in terms of your own candidacy. I don't think it has to be anything too fancy, too out there either. What's really important, I think, to start is never go with a recruiter and reach out to them and say, do you have a job for me, or can you put me in touch with anyone else? You can never ask that until you've actually built a trust and rapport with them. That's something really important. So I guess to wrap things up, as given time here, some of the key things I'm taking with it, I've heard from both Chike and Matt, and I talked about today. A few things that really stuck out with me in terms of leveraging networking for your job search is to be persistent, be proactive, be very polished with your message, be very prepared as well, present yourself well. There's all these P words that I'm listing here that I've identified. Is there anything else, Chike, that you want to add to our audience here?
Yeah, I would just say, just be likable, confident, know exactly what it is that you want and why. And remember, you may only have one opportunity to speak to the person of influence who makes that decision. It's not every day that somebody gets to be in front of them. So if you have the opportunity, you can't blow it by not knowing what you want to do. And at the end, just be authentic.
Yeah, absolutely. You want to make that first impression and lasting impression. So awesome. Well, thank you so much. For those who are new to my work, check out Magnify Your Markability, which is mymarkability.com. You can subscribe to my website, where you can also get a free networking e-guide on how to network and connect effectively to generate opportunities. So thank you so much, everyone. I hope you're going to have enjoy the rest of your summer here. And Chike, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Really appreciate your time and your advice and your words of wisdom, and I look forward to connecting you again soon.
Likewise, my pleasure. Have a good night, guys.
Right.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.